Hi, let me welcome you all to this episode on project management using Visual Studio 2010. Let me introduce myself. My name is Tejasvi Kumar. I work as a developer technology specialist, focusing on Visual Studio and related technologies. So that's my email alias, tejkumar@microsoft.com. So if you need any information on whatever I'm going to be talking about today, please feel free to reach out to me. Today I'm going to be focusing on the project management capabilities available in Visual Studio 2010. We've done a bunch of advancements. We've introduced a lot of capabilities. So I'll give you a quick run through of some of these capabilities. And you see this Team Foundation server right at the bottom there. And in the Team Foundation server, there's this particular section called project management. So I'm going to be focusing on that particular section. Obviously, I'm going to be covering bits and pieces of few other areas in Team Foundation server. Specifically, in terms of project management, I'm going to be talking about the work item tracking system that we have in Team Foundation server. So on work item tracking, for those folks who've not used this technology in the past, it is the unit of communication amongst the team members. So typically, as a project manager, I have the ability to actually go and create my plans and schedules in MPP, for example. And then if I have a bunch of resources as part of my team, and if I have a plan with the dates, the timelines, the schedules, everything there as part of the plan, right? I could actually publish that plan. And then what happens typically is if I am one of the team members, I would basically get that communication within my Visual Studio shell. And I could then go and work on that particular feature implementation. Once I'm done with that, an automatic update goes back to the project manager in that MPP sheet itself. So that's the kind of integration that we provide here. And in terms of the communication amongst the team members, any communication that takes place in your environment, all of that would be done through the work item tracking system that I'm going to be showing you today. We've also given you a bunch of capabilities specifically around reporting. I'm going to walk you through some of those capabilities as well in the next 20 or 25 minutes. So on agile planning, on agile capacity plan specifically, we have capabilities. I'll walk you through some of those things as well. Dashboard, the SharePoint portal that we have as part of the Visual Studio platform. So this is what is in store. I'm not going to be using too many slides. I'm going to walk you through the tool itself, the technology itself. So there are a few reports here which I thought I'll just highlight here. Agile reporting. So this gives you the burn down chart, the velocity of how your work is burning down, and you have the user stories. So you get to see the user stories and the test cases against each of those user stories. So you have this clear, the dashboard which gives you all the details, necessary information. You have the progress charts as well, the number of hours remaining against each of those user stories. Fairly useful. From a test reporting perspective, we've again got a bunch of, so I'm just showing you a few of these reports. It goes way beyond whatever I'm actually showing here. So there's the number of test cases, then you have the different phases. You have some test cases in the design phase, some in the proposed stage. So all of that is available here. And you have the number of test cases which have passed, which have failed, which have been blocked, which have never run at all, stuff like that. All of that is available here from a test reporting standpoint. You also have the test run results. So you get to see on the extreme left-hand side the test plan, the test, the details there, the status of that particular test case, as it executed, as it passed, as it failed, whatever the details, right? So you get all of those details here. Bug reporting or bug tracking. So all of the data is available here based on dates and timelines. So you get to see the number of bugs which are actually coming into the project, how many bugs are getting addressed, and so on and so forth, the trends. And the bug status, so you actually get to see all the details pertaining to how many bugs are active, how many have been resolved, how many are closed. At the bottom there again, you get to see the active bugs by priority. So again, it goes down to each individual level. So at an individual level, you get to see how many bugs are pending against a particular person. Again, very useful. We have dashboards that we provide. So I mean, from a technology perspective, you have Team Foundation server, and you go and create projects on the Team Foundation server. And every project you create will automatically have a portal associated with that particular project. So in the back end, we use SharePoint. So SharePoint services, that's the technology that basically goes and creates these portals for you. So especially from a project management, especially from a delivery edge standpoint, you get to view all of these reports, whatever reports I just showed you, much more reports beyond what I showed you, all available through the dashboard. So this is again, very useful because it's all role based. And if you look at this dashboard here, you actually get to see the requirements that have been covered by the tests, how many requirements have actually been addressed, the pass rate, the active and severity of the bug count, and you have the trends as well there, the progress charts. So, and most importantly, whatever I'm talking about here, right, this is a SharePoint portal, so you can actually go and customize any of these things. So whatever is available here is out of the box. So I can actually go and add my own web parts and make it as custom to your own needs and requirements as necessary. And one other snapshot of dashboards here. So what I'm going to do now is let me give you a quick walkthrough of whatever I showed you. I'm going to just toggle over to a virtual machine. So what I have here on this virtual, I'm going to be using a virtual machine here. So I have Visual Studio 2010 installed. I have Team Foundation Server. I have SharePoint. I have a bunch of other necessary services running in the back end here. I'm going to show you a very quick walkthrough of the capabilities we've introduced from a project manager's perspective. So let me get into MPP. So imagine I'm a project manager. I'm wearing the project manager's hat right now. So I get into MPP. I have these menu options automatically popping up here. That's coming up mainly because I have MPP on a machine which also has Visual Studio 2010, the Team Explorer installed. So I click on Choose Team Project. So there are like around about 5 projects on my server, and I'm actually working on this project called Patient Monitoring. You can actually see that there. So I can connect to that project. So what's going to happen now is it's going to connect into my Team Foundation server, and it's going to fetch all the data from my Team Foundation server. So you have this option called Get Work Items. Click on the Get Work Items. End of the day, if you look at the architecture, right, of the Team Foundation server, so you have this application tier, and in the back end you have a database tier. So there's a SQL server that we actually package as part of the Team Foundation server. So all of this data would basically reside in the SQL server, and whatever I'm fetching from the SQL server would be through these queries. So just look at these queries here. This is like all the queries that we've created for you to fetch the data from the backend, the database itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go and open one of these queries which says open work items. So it's going to fetch all the work items available currently for that particular project. So I'm going to choose all and say OK. So you'll notice that you have this entire plan. So what I've actually done is I've done the other way around. So rather than me creating a new plan, there was an existing plan which was already published to my team. So I've gone and fetched that plan back from the server into my MPP. So that's what I've actually done. If you notice, for people who've been using this technology in the previous versions, one of the capabilities that we've introduced here is this old predecessors, the parent and child relationships. Everything is still maintained intact. We got a lot of feedback on this particular point. I personally got a lot of feedback saying, hey, this is very important for me. So in the past, what would happen is like, everything would be like, just, straight, no parent and no child relationships and stuff like that. So everything would be like a straight list of all the work items. So here I have all the details. On the right-hand side, you actually get to see the names of the people who are actually working on each of these tasks or bugs or change requests, whatever it could be, right? So for the sake of this demonstration, let me just go and create a new task. So let me say, implement the nurses table. So that's a new task I'm just adding. I'm going to say this task is going to be implemented by whatever person, and the duration is going to be 5 days. So I'll specify 5 days as the duration. You have the start date, you have the finish date, and you can also assign this task to a particular person. I'm going to assign it to a person called Tejaswi Kumar. I'm going to then make this as a, make this into a task. There are different options available here. So one thing you need to understand here is the Visual Studio technology, right? When you look at Team Foundation Server, it has a process template which is attached as part of the whole platform. So there are 2 process templates that we package. One is Agile based, the other one is CMMI based. What I've chosen for this particular demonstration is an Agile based template. And because I've chosen Agile, you actually get to see all of these different types of work items that are automatically popping up here. All of these are out of the box work item types. You can actually go and customize this, add your own work item types, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go and add a task, and I can actually make it part of a particular iteration. So if you have like iteration 1, iteration 2, or different names, in my case I'm going to go and add this into iteration 2 because that's the plan I'm actually working on right now. So I'm pretty much done with this. What I could do now is I could click on publish. When I click on publish, this task that I just created, that would magically go into my Team Foundation server, and the person who's supposed to be working on this particular task, that person would actually get to see this within Visual Studio Shell. I'm actually going to show that. So if you notice here, there's a work item ID that has been automatically generated for you. So now let me go into Visual Studio. In Visual Studio, right at the top there, that's your Team Foundation server, and you have these different projects. I'm actually working on this project called Patient Monitoring. So under Patient Monitoring, you have these work item folder. So if you expand that work item folder, you can actually go into this query called My Work Items. So all of this is based on permissions. So if I go and double click on My Work Items, I've actually logged in as a particular user. So I've logged in as Tejaswi Kumar. I actually get to see the different work items pending against my name. And all of this data is magically popping up within my Visual Studio Shell. If you actually scroll down right to the bottom, look at the last work item, which says implement a nurses table. This is the one which was just raised by the project manager in MPP. So that's actually showing up here. If I double click on that work item, this is how the work item form looks like. So you have like a bunch of data points here, and you could actually go and look at the number of hours pending for this particular work item, and the number of hours which is completed and stuff like that. So what I'll do is, for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to go and say there's like 8 hours still remaining for this work. 32 hours has already been put in for this particular work, and I'm going to go and click on Control S. So I'm going to save this work item. So once I save this work item, what happens is the typical situation, right? You have a project manager who's probably wondering, I raised this task to this team member, and he's probably wondering what happened to that task. So I go into MPP again. When I go back into MPP, and right now there's no update here, but now if I go and click on refresh, what you get to see is you actually get to see that update. You get to see here that 80% of the work has got completed, mainly because the total duration was 5 days, and this person has actually said 32 hours completed, 8 hours still remaining. So it's like 80% complete, right? So that's the kind of visibility you would get using MPP and the Team Foundation server in the backend. So that's the kind of seamless data flow that happens in the Visual Studio 2010 environment. Just to kind of take this to the next level, each of these work items also have a state field. So if you notice here, you have a status field, right? As of now, it's still active. If I, for the sake of this demonstration, if I want to go and close this, and then I do a Control S, I'm saving this work item. So this time around, when I go back into my MPP, and I don't have the state field here, let me just add that column as well. So you can actually go and insert any number of columns you want, depending on what kind of data you would want and stuff like that, right? So I'm just going to add this state field here. If you notice, everything is active right now at this point in time. And if I click on refresh, look at the last one here. This is the one I'm actually working on. If I actually go and click on refresh, you will notice that that work item has got closed. So the project manager actually gets to see what work has got completed, what is still pending. So if there's any work which has not been completed on time, we can also have these workflows enabled, which means an email can probably go back to the project manager. An email can probably go back to the developer in question here to kind of which is probably a reminder to that person saying that, okay, this work was like supposed to have got completed 2 days back, it's still not completed and stuff like that. So it's very important. So that's the kind of workflows we've actually created as part of the Visual Studio 2010 platform. What I'm going to show you now, I'm going to show you some of the reporting capabilities available here in the Visual Studio environment, and this is going to be very useful for project managers. I'll open this query called Open Work Items. So this is like all of the tasks, all of the bugs, all the work items for that particular project, right? So if you want to edit this query, it's fairly straightforward. Go click on edit query. You can kind of, go and customize this to your own needs, requirements. It's all there, the different options. So you can actually go and tweak around with these queries. You can add your own queries if you want to. You also have the ability to, display the work items in different formats. For example, if I want to get a tree of work items, straightforward, go run your query. So what happens now if you scroll down at the bottom here, you'll notice that you have, for each of the requirement specific tasks. And all of these are like, the hierarchy information is still maintained. So whatever you saw in your MPP, right, the same structure is still maintained in the Visual Studio environment. Again, this was a feedback we received in the past, and this has been addressed. I'm sure like, this is going to excite a lot of project managers. So I'm going to show you like, what kind of reports you can generate from Visual Studio environment. This option called create report in Microsoft Excel. So what's going to happen now is when I actually go and click on that, it's going to open up Excel sheet for you. That's number one. Number two, you have this bunch of work items, right, for that particular project. So it's going to go and create, reports, trend reports out of that information. All of that would reflect in Excel sheet. In my case, I don't have too much of information. I'm actually working on a virtual machine, so you might not really see a bunch of rich data here. But if you have real-time information here, this can be very, very useful. So it'll give you all of the details pertaining to, for example, which developer has how much of work assigned to that person, is that person able to deliver, is he overloaded, stuff like that. So all of these kind of reports are very easy to generate, all through Visual Studio. Click that button, it opens Excel, and then you get a bunch of these different reports. As easy as that. And if you notice here, the work item count by stack rank, you have the work item count by priorities, and you also have the ability to, you have the pivot tables on the right hand side here. So if you want to go and probably make some changes to this report, I could just go here and, for example, if I want assign to information, I just clicked on assign to, and you get a bunch of, different team members working on, working in your project, and whoever is working on each of these work items, you get to actually see all those details reflecting here. You also get to see the trend reports. So this is about generating reports straight from the Visual Studio environment and into Excel sheet. Very quickly, what I want to do now is I want to show you capacity planning. So project managers are, in the situation where, for example, they've completed one iteration and he or she is getting into the next iteration. So when they begin the next iteration, they would want to go and plan. And you saw this MPP, right? So I have this plan already created. Let me just open that MPP. So there's the plan, let's assume. And there's a bunch of information here on the right-hand side, which is actually for iteration 2. So what I'm going to show you now is, I'm going to show you through, the reporting capabilities in the Visual Studio environment, how I can actually go and plan my next iteration. In this case, I'm going to actually go and plan for the iteration 2. I'm going to show you how that works. So let me go back into my Visual Studio shell. You have this option called documents. Click on documents, expand documents, get into iteration 2 because that's what I'm actually working on. You have this iteration backlog template. Go and click on that iteration backlog template. It's going to actually prompt you. So click on OK, then it opens up Excel sheet again, and it's fetching all the information for me. So from your Team Foundation server, whatever data is there, right, pertaining to iteration 2, all of that information is going to get loaded into an Excel capacity planning sheet. So this is the areas and iterations tab, and given that I'm actually working on iteration 2, let me just go and choose iteration 2. Let's take a scenario. So I'm actually planning this iteration. It's going to last for like 4 to 5 weeks. So I'm going to put a start date here. I'm going to say this is going to start on, say, 3rd of April 2010, and it's going to end on probably the 2nd of May 2010. So that's like 20 days. You have 20 days for this particular iteration, given all the holidays and all in between, right? So what I can do now is, let me get into the tab which is called capacity here. When I get into the capacity tab, based on my previous, the plan I created in my MPP, I have around about 384 hours of work for iteration 2. If I scroll down a little bit, you have the individual capacity, based on team members. So I can actually add the team members into this project. In this case, there are 3 team members. I'm going to basically go and add all the 3 team members. And how many hours do you put in every day? At least 8 hours. So what happens now is fairly interesting. So you have 2 individuals who are actually underutilized. If you scroll down a little bit, right, you actually get to see that that 2 individuals are fairly underutilized. And then there's this rock star here called Tejasvi Kumar. So unfortunately, this guy is completely overloaded. Look at this. He's overloaded by what? 24 hours. It's a bad scene, right? And then what happens? This guy is so frustrated. He goes into this tab called interruptions, and what does he do? He says, I want to take a vacation. These are the kind of surprises you normally see as a project manager, right? So you have this tab called interruptions. So whenever you have an interruption, right, go there, and this guy says, okay, I desperately need a vacation. So I'm going to say start date is 5th of April 2010, and end date is probably 10th of April 2010. I really want to take a long break, 5 days break, right? So typically what happens now, go back into capacity, it's really gone haywire. So you have one guy is totally overloaded. So that's 64 hours overutilized. And then we have 2 of my colleagues who are fairly happy in life, chilling out in life. So look at the green section there at the top. So they're underutilized. So what I can do now as a project manager is I can just get into the tab called iteration backlog. And this is the information that you're actually getting from the team foundation in the backend, right? I can reassign the work that was previously assigned to Tejasvi Kumar to another person who's not overloaded. So in this case, I'll probably reassign this work to a person called Doris. So now, once this reassignment happens, if I go back into capacity, you'll notice that it's reduced. Whatever additional work was there for Tejasvi Kumar, that's kind of reduced, but it's not enough. So what I could do now is I could go and reassign another task. Probably I'll take this one, and I'll probably reassign this to, again, Doris. So if I come back into capacity, this time I'm okay. But Doris is a little overloaded this time. But you get the point. The point is through this capacity planning sheet, it gives you the ability to actually go and, on the fly, make those small subtle changes to your plan, work on those changes. And once you're done with all of these things, you could just get into this iteration backlog. I'm actually currently on Excel sheet, right? So go into this option called team, click on publish, bingo, magically all that information goes back into my Visual Studio, into the team foundation server. The 2 reassignments I've done. So work item number 62, work item number 80. So these 2 have got reassigned from Tejasvi Kumar to Doris. So if I get back into my MPP sheet this time, and if I click on refresh, so I have task 62, here, Tejasvi Kumar. So if I click on refresh, what happens? That gets reassigned to Doris. The same thing would happen if I actually go into Visual Studio and look at fetch the query again. I won't really do that. So this is really useful, folks, especially from a project management perspective, especially if you're following agile-based methodologies. What we also provide as part of this platform is the SharePoint portals. So you have all of the dashboards, right? So there's just a SharePoint portal. So you can actually go into your project, whichever project you're working on. For example, patient monitoring. Right-click on that project, say Show Project Portal, and open up your portal. And this is what you actually see. So all of this is customizable. End of the day, it's like SharePoint, it's web parts. I can actually go and tweak any of these things. So what I'm actually showing you is straight out of the box stuff. You have the details pertaining to the burn down. You have on the right hand side, you get to see the builds, the different builds, the status, all of that stuff. You also have here on the left hand side, if you scroll down here, you have the Excel reports, and you have the reports link here. If I click on Excel reports, you actually get to see the different reports templates that we actually provide as part of the team foundation server. It could be code churn, it could be code coverage, all of that data would be available because all this information is stored in the team foundation server. Similarly, if I click on the reports link here, you actually get to see all that data, all that information available in the team foundation server. So folks, this is what I wanted to show you from a project management perspective. What I'm going to do now is, let me very quickly go back into my slide. So there's these couple of links here, references. So download link for Visual Studio 2010. There's a bunch of information available. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email alias is tejkumar@microsoft.com. I hope you enjoyed this briefing and thank you so much for attending. Have a great day.